Having a birth plan is such an important part of having a smooth labor and delivery process because we do not have time to be stressing out when the time comes about what we're going to do, what we need to do, what we need to have figured out and things like that. So especially for us first time expecting mamas, there's so many things that I personally did not know about, including in my birth plan. Things that I didn't think to think of, things that I didn't even think were a thing. And especially now being 38 weeks, I have my birth plan together. My midwives and I have already gone over that. I've gone over it with my husband. We've crafted it together. We've made a plan together. And so now we feel really confident going into our all natural, unmedicated birth with our midwives. And so today I'm going to share some things with you about what to include, what to keep in mind, and what to consider to include in your birth plan so that you can make sure you think through all the things, especially for us first time expecting mamas. If you're new here, I'm Naomi. Again, I'm 38 weeks pregnant with my first baby. It's a baby girl and she's due any day now. So let's go ahead and get into the first thing. The first thing to consider when it comes to your birth plan, and if you don't know already, then this is definitely a time to make decisions on this, is how you want to birth. Are you wanting to go the home birth route, a birthing center route? Are you wanting to go a hospital birth route? And like I said, by this point that you're creating a birth plan, you probably already know what you want to do, but it's really important to make sure that you have this decision finalized because that's going to adjust how the rest of your birth plan goes. And so in my case, I'm doing a natural, unmedicated water birth at a birthing center. And so my birth plan is tailored towards that environment because that's where I will be birthing. And so another one of the first things that you want to think about are your delivery preferences and then your immediate post-delivery preferences. So things like skin to skin contact. Is this important for you after your baby comes out? Do you want them to immediately go on your chest? I know in natural birth scenarios, this is definitely very common and I love that so much. And it's definitely something that's less common in hospital settings, but thinking about if that's something that's important to you and your spouse. Also, who's going to catch your baby? If you're going the natural birth route, who's going to catch your baby? Do you want to catch your baby? Do you want your spouse to catch your baby? Do you want someone else to catch your baby? That's definitely something to think about now. And then other things like the cord. When it comes to cord cutting, do you want to do cord cutting? Do you want to do a cord burning ceremony? I didn't even know that was a thing. Or do you want to do a lotus birth? And that's where you leave the placenta and cord attached to the baby until it naturally falls off. So it's basically with them until it falls off. So these are all things to think about and include in your birth plan, and honestly are some things that definitely could be overlooked, but knowing them in advance, you can be prepared because there's certain things like if you want to do a cord burning ceremony, then there's like a cord burning kit that you can get to take with you. If you want to do a lotus birth, then there's like a lotus birth bag that you would get that has different herbs in it and stuff like that to keep the placenta in and keep it, fresh and not stinky, so that you can carry that around while you carry baby around. So having all these things is very important so that you can get what you need if you need to get anything. The next thing to include in your birth plan is your plan for pain management. If you are going the natural route, do you plan to use breathing techniques and movement for pain management? I know for certain like birthing centers and home births, nitrous oxide is an option for pain management. Do you plan to do that? If you're doing a hospital birth, do you plan to get an epidural or not plan to get an epidural? So this is definitely something important now to look through and make sure that you include in your birth plan. The next part of your birth plan is your labor environment. And this is so important because your labor environment can slow down or speed up your labor because we have to feel comfortable and safe and peaceful in our birthing environment. And so do you want the room to be dim and moody and music playing, or do you want it to be quiet? Do you want there to be a lot of noise and laughter? So this is something to think about, what kind of environment you would feel the most comfortable in laboring, so that way there aren't any things in your environment that would slow down your labor. The next things to think about are your newborn procedures. So things like the vitamin K shot, eye ointment, circumcision if you're having a baby boy. These are all things to think about, make decisions on, do your research on, ask your questions about, and include in your birth plan, so that way when that time comes, you know what you're doing, and things aren't just happening without your consent, which is more likely in hospital settings and less likely in home births or birthing center births, where we're typically asked more questions and things aren't done without our consent. But again, make sure that these are things that you're looking into ahead of time and including in your birth plan so that you can plan accordingly. The next thing to include in your birth plan is who's going to be involved. Who do you want there? Are you going to notify anyone when you're in labor, or do you not want to notify anyone when you're in labor? Do you want visitors after the baby is born? All these things are very important to think about, because if you don't want visitors, then you can make sure that you let everyone know that you kindly don't want to accept visitors. You can also make sure that you have the people there that you really want there, or don't have people there if you really don't want them there, so that you can make those preferences known up front. The next part of your birth plan is knowing how you want your people to support you. And so when you are dealing with contractions, when you're uncomfortable, how do you want support? Do you want your doula or your spouse to be coaching you through? Do you want them to give you words of affirmation? Do you want a massage? What kind of support do you want? And so this is very, very important to make sure that you look into and include as a part of your birth plan, and also update those people that are going to be supporting you so that they can make sure they do just that during your labor and delivery process. The next thing is your feeding preferences. Do you plan to breastfeed or formula feed, or both? And this is important so that you can prepare in advance, so that you know after you've birthed your baby if you're going to feed them at the breast, if you're going to formula feed, so that you can have the formula with you to take with you to feed them after they're born. Also, if you plan to breastfeed, you can go ahead and start learning how to use like a breast pump if you plan to start pumping. So all these things are important to think about now and include in your birth plan, so that you can be prepped when that time comes to either breastfeed or to formula feed, or both if you plan to do both. The next part of your birth plan are really logistics that come down to whose car are you taking? So that's really important. So you can have the car seat installed in that car, have the bags packed and placed in that car. Anything else that you're taking with you, you can have it ready in that car, so that you're prepared. The next thing is, who are you going to notify? So when you start experiencing contractions, or maybe your water is breaking, or you feel like you're starting to go into labor, who are you going to notify? Are you going to notify your spouse? Do you have a parent that you want to notify, or a friend, or a doula, or a midwife that you need to notify? So knowing who you're going to notify, who you need to notify, and also having their contact information, because for example, in my case, we will contact our midwives when the time comes. And so there's a certain number that we have to call when that time comes. And so we have that number saved under an emergency number. Midwives call this number when the baby's coming. So just make sure that you have all the numbers saved and ready to go of the people that you want to notify when that time comes. Another thing to think about to include in your birth plan is, do you plan to document your labor and delivery process? And this is so important so that you can make sure that you get the pictures and the videos that you want, because this time comes and goes so quickly early, and it's precious, and it's literally a once in a lifetime experience with this baby that you're having. So if you plan to document, if you want to hire a birth photographer, then that's something to look into now. Or if you have, say, a family member that you plan to have there to take pictures and videos of you during the process, or if you just want to document yourself, use a tripod and just set it up. So this is all something to think about now, because once you are in the process of labor and delivery, you're not going to be thinking about stuff like that. And you definitely want to make sure that if you want to document those special moments, that you get them so you have them. Another thing to include in your birth plan is if you have pets or children that need to be looked after, who is going to look after them? And do you need to take them to them? Are they going to come to you? So just kind of having those arrangements in place ahead of time is very important, so last minute you're not worrying about who's going to watch your pets or who's going to watch your other children if you have any. So this is definitely an easy overlooked part, but make sure that you have that in order so that you can include that. So these are all things to consider when you're writing out your birth plan, and this is by no means everything. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe, and I wish you the best in your pregnancy journey.